Welcome to Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show, where this week we have the all-new Volkswagen Golf R. Is it good enough to compete with Audi and AMG?
We also have hybrids from Honda and Toyota. The new BMW One Series and the new Cupra Formentor faces up against its German rivals.
It seems that international motor shows are back. Since Geneva was cancelled in March last year, international car shows have been on hold. Now though, it seems things are slowly getting back to normal in China, with the 2021 Shanghai Auto Show. The event welcomed thousands of visitors who each had to comply with strict coronavirus regulations. Shanghai so far is the only big motor show due to take place this year, and as such, manufacturers were out in force. Chinese brand Geely had one of the biggest reveals with the new Jingwei L, a flagship SUV with a 2-litre Volvo engine providing modest performance and decent economy. But it wasn't just local manufacturers showing off new models. Audi revealed its new A6 e-tron concept, an electric saloon to sit below the e-tron GT. While we still don't know when the next big motor show will take place, we can't wait to see what manufacturers will bring.
BMW has a long history of doing things a bit differently to most other car makers. While many manufacturers, Mercedes and Audi included, have been making front-wheel drive cars for years, BMW has always stubbornly stuck to its guns and continued to send power to the rear. It's something petrolheads have always admired, but sadly all great things must come to an end. Yet the new One Series is front-wheel drive. The question is then, has BMW ruined its little hatchback? Or is this change in attitude a positive move in an increasingly competitive market? Well, while previous generations of the One Series were often praised for their rear-wheel drive balance and handling, it always came at a cost. Thanks to various bits of drivetrain gubbins, the One Series was never as practical as its rivals. The new model does away with all that compromise, meaning it's finally able to compete with the Audi A3 and Mercedes A-Class for practicality. And while that may seem like a shame to those who put driving pleasure above all else, in reality most buyers will be glad of the room in the boot. Elsewhere in the cabin, the new One Series is typically BMW, with most of the controls aimed towards the driver and a superb selection of high-quality switchgear levers and trim pieces. On the road, performance is impressive throughout the range. Thanks to the removal of the prop shaft and rear diff, the new model is slightly lighter than the outgoing car. Behind the wheel, the vast majority of buyers will be unlikely to notice the new front-wheel drive setup. It's hugely impressive and feels every bit the BMW. Sure, it won't hang its tail out when you prod the throttle, but really, how often are you doing that in your 1.6-litre diesel hatchback?
For those that do want to have some real fun though, there's always this. The flagship of the new One Series range, the M135i. Oh yes, BMW has not messed about, with the latest hot hatch available from the regular car's launch. And before you start comparing it to Renault Meganes and Focus STs, you should know that this isn't a front-wheel drive hot hatch. The M135i is all-wheel drive. A first for the One Series, power is sent to all four wheels via a part-time four-wheel drive system. Most of the time, drive is just sent to the front wheels, but put your foot down and up to 50% of the car's 301 brake horsepower can be sent to the rears. It may no longer make use of the old M140i's straight 6, but the transversely mounted turbocharged 2-litre surges the 135 from 0 to 62 in just 4.8 seconds, making this a real rival for the Mercedes AMG A35 and Audi S3. The engine alone is 35 kilograms lighter than the old car's 6-cylinder, meaning the new, fast One Series is properly fun to drive. It does lack the character of some front-wheel drive offerings, but this is a hugely capable car. We're not quite sold on the new One Series looks, but the M version is certainly an improvement. It still has the oversized kidney grills that are becoming commonplace on modern BMWs, but the body kit, big alloys and anti-social exhausts help to dilute the awkward styling.
So then, while we were all worried that BMW would ruin the One Series with a new drivetrain configuration, it seems that we needn't have been. Of course, the new car doesn't quite have the character that we're used to in BMWs, but this is unquestionably the most accomplished One Series yet.
When it launched in 1995, the Honda CR-V was one of the first compact SUVs on sale. Since then, the Honda has been a class favourite and hugely popular worldwide. In fact, since 2012, it's been Honda's best-selling model globally. And now, with this most recent version, there are a few new things to shout about. Now in its 5th generation, the CR-V looks largely the same as the old model, but under the bonnet there are several large changes. The first is the addition of a hybrid model. The CR-V Hybrid matches a 2-litre petrol engine with an electric motor and is available in both 2- and 4-wheel drive. The hybrid system is good, cutting in and out of EV mode seamlessly. Petrol models are still available, the first a 1.5-litre turbocharged engine combined with a 6-speed manual box and front-wheel drive, producing 171 bhp. The second has 190 bhp, a CVT gearbox and 4-wheel drive as standard. While the CR-V has a similar overall size to the previous version, the wheelbase has been increased, so much so that the Honda can now be specified with 5 or 7 seats. While the rearmost row seats is a bit cramped for anyone but young children, the extra seats do give the CR-V an advantage over its 5-seat rivals. Of course, this extra row of seats does come with a compromise. The boot in this generation is smaller than before, but it's still one of the largest in class at 536 litres with the seats in place. In true Honda fashion, it all feels as if it'll last forever, but sadly it is let down by the infotainment system. It looks dated and isn't easy to use or quick to respond. Thankfully though, it does have smartphone connectivity.
But in a segment of the market as crowded as this, the Honda doesn't have things all its own way. This is the new Toyota RAV4. A clear departure from previous models, the latest RAV4 is certainly bold, with lots of creases and angles giving it an identity all of its own. Now hybrid only, the Toyota uses a big 2.5-litre petrol engine hooked up to an electric motor and noisy CVT gearbox. Performance is decent though, with all-wheel drive models hitting 62 from rest in just over 8 seconds. Inside, the styling is a little more understated, but still modern and well made. Leather comes as standard, as too does the infotainment system, which leaves a lot to be desired. It's slow to respond and tricky to use. Thankfully, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are included, saving you the hassle of the built-in sat-nav. Best of all though, the RAV4 comes absolutely loaded with tech. Lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, you name it, it has it. It also comes with a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty, but being a Toyota, it seems unlikely that you'd ever need it.
And it is a Toyota that's our pick of the pair. It looks great, and the proven hybrid system will certainly appeal to eco-conscious buyers. It's also good value and a truly interesting choice in this fairly predictable corner of the market.
After the break, a sporty Spanish crossover and the all-new VW Golf R.
Coming up, Volkswagen's new super hatch. But first,
since the Volkswagen Group bought SEAT in 1986, the Spanish brand has consistently produced cheaper, stylish versions of VW products. Often available with less equipment to keep the prices down, the gap between SEAT and Volkswagen has been getting narrower for years now. And while SEAT has long built Golf GTI rivaling hot hatchbacks, it's now turning its hand to performance SUVs. This is the new Cupra Formentor, and immediately you'll notice there aren't any SEAT badges. That's because Cupra, the old name for fast SEATs, is now a brand in its own right, with bronze badging and lots of matte grey paintwork. Following on from its reworked Ateca, the Formentor is the sub-brand's first unique model. Marketed as a coupe SUV, it's longer and lower than an Ateca, with the familiar bronze accents and big wheels. It's a handsome car, as it should be, with a starting price of just under £40,000 for the top spec cars. There is a host of cheaper, slower options though, and even a plug-in hybrid. For now though, we'll concentrate on the full-fat 306 brake horsepower 2-litre turbo model. Power is sent to all four wheels via a 7-speed DSG transmission. The result is some impressive performance figures. 0 to 62 miles per hour takes just 4.9 seconds, while top speed is limited to 155. Inside, all trim levels come with digital instruments and a massive 12-inch central touchscreen complete with Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. The angular design of the exterior is continued inside, with more copper-coloured detailing and a lack of physical buttons, with many of the controls being operated via the infotainment screen. Despite its coupe-ish design, the Formentor is practical, with decent passenger space and a 420-litre boot. But in this class, cargo space plays second fiddle to snob value. And if having a car with a premium image is important to you, look no further than this, the BMW X2 M35i.
With some M Division chassis tweaks and a 302 brake horsepower 2-litre engine, the X2 matches the Cupra from 0 to 62, but does so with that all-important BMW badge on the nose. It's slightly smaller than the Formentor and not as good looking, with a somewhat dated cabin, albeit one that's easier to use. It is only £2,000 more than the Cupra though, something that will no doubt win image-conscious buyers. So how about its VW Group stablemates, the Audi SQ2 and the Volkswagen Tiguan R? Well, starting with the Audi, it makes do with slightly less power. 297 bhp, but beats both the BMW and the Cupra to 62 by a tenth of a second. That rapid acceleration is matched by its impressive torque delivery, pulling hard throughout the rev range. However, its small size and relatively low ride height do make us wonder why you wouldn't just save some money and buy a lighter, faster S3 instead. So what about the Tiguan R? A proper SUV with plenty of space, the Tiguan R uses the same 2-litre motor as the Cupra and the Audi, this time tuned up to 316 brake horsepower. Performance figures are identical to the Cupra's due to its extra bulk, but despite their similarities, this is a very different car. It makes do without the edgy styling, bronze trim and matte paint, instead quietly sporting some normal chrome badges and an all-round more sensible look. It's a lot more subtle for those who like their fast SUVs to fly under the radar. The interior is much more conventional too, with lots of buttons and hard-wearing plastics.
The Cupra and the VW R are two favourites in this class, but both for different reasons. While their on-paper performance may be identical, the outlandish styling of the Formentor and the more reserved image of the Volkswagen each appeal to different sides of our personalities.
For hot hatch enthusiasts, one car in particular has always been a mainstay of their affections: the Volkswagen Golf GTI. One of the original fast family cars, the GTI has become synonymous with practical performance. In recent years though, hot hatches have become faster, more powerful and sometimes four-wheel drive. So while the GTI may still be able to mix it with Renault Sport Méganes and Focus STs, VW needs something a bit more muscular to keep up with Audi and Mercedes. And this is what they've come up with: the all-new Mark 8 Golf R. Following the same formula of previous versions, the new Golf R is like a GTI that's been hitting the gym. Power is up from 242 brake horsepower in the GTI to 316, while the 0 to 62 time is down to just 4.7 seconds, making this the fastest accelerating Volkswagen currently on sale. The extra performance comes courtesy of an all-wheel drive system and a tuned version of the same turbocharged 2-litre engine found in the old Golf R. Naturally, the chassis had some upgrades too, with stiffer adaptive dampers, a new progressive power steering system, bigger brakes and wider tyres. It's lower too, but it's not just the hardware that's been altered. The traction and stability control systems have also been tweaked, and there's a fancy new torque vectoring system that can split power between the front and rear axles and even between the two rear wheels for maximum grip on even the slippiest of surfaces. To set it apart from the more traditional GTI, the Golf R does without the red trim and tartan seats, instead going for a contemporary look with a big rear spoiler, quad Akrapovic exhausts and a serious-looking diffuser. At the front, the changes are more subtle, with a slightly more aggressive body kit and a small but significant R badge in the grille. Inside, it's business as usual, with some R-branded sport seats and various bits of blue trim and stitching. Like all Mark 8 Golfs, the interior isn't quite as upmarket as some of its rivals, but it does at least come with plenty of goodies, chief among which is the new Drift Mode, which, you guessed it, turns the grippy Golf into a power-sliding hooligan at the touch of a button. Drift modes are nothing new. We first saw one on the last generation Ford Focus RS, but in something as grown up as a Golf, it's rather a nice surprise.
However, the Golf R has a big problem. This, the new Audi S3. Sharing a platform and engine with the Golf, it's almost as fast, but quite a lot more desirable. It's 10 horsepower down on the VW and a tenth of a second slower to 62, but it makes up for it with its upmarket styling and gorgeous interior that feels a world away from the Golfs. It isn't even expensive, with starting prices at under £39,000, 300 quid less than the Golf. So, what's on offer outside the VAG stable? Well, BMW is muscling in on the market with the new M135i that we saw earlier. And then there's this, the Mercedes AMG A35. Now, like its rivals, it's a tuned-up version of a mainstream hatchback with plenty of go-faster bits bolted on. It too gets a turbocharged 2-litre motor, putting out about the same power. It's a tenth quicker to 62 than the Audi though, matching the VW. Most of the time, you'd be hard-pressed to distinguish it from a regular A-Class. It gets the same gorgeous tech-filled cabin, albeit with a few bespoke AMG touches. It drives pretty normally too, like any other hatchback, but play around with the driving modes and the baby AMG soon turns into a bit of a monster. The acceleration feels rapid, with the sensation of speed helped by the barking exhaust note.
In this class then, the angry little Mercedes is our pick of the bunch. The R may well be the ultimate Golf, but in this company, it's simply outclassed.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we check out an all-new pickup truck from Hyundai, the Santa Cruz.